Welcome back. 2 years ago, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell beat Carlos Curbelo to represent Florida's 26th district in Congress. She is now running for re-election against Miami-Dade's Republican Mayor, Carlos Jimenez, who is term limited out of office and is hoping Donald Trump's endorsement will carry him to Washington.
The reality is that he embraced Donald Trump from the moment Donald Trump took office. And we've seen his actions when he announced he was going to run for Congress. He immediately embraced Donald Trump. Donald Trump endorsed Carlos Jimenez. But the danger in my district is that we have some of the hardest working families that live in Florida's 26th district. We have nurses that are working 18-hour shifts, not knowing when the pandemic will end. We have teachers that are so anxious to go back to the classroom because they don't have the resources to make sure that they are safe and the kids are safe from the spread of this virus, but also because they don't have the resources to make sure that their classrooms are ready for whether it's online or hybrid learning. We have people that are concerned about those issues every single day. And what I'm seeing from my opponent, but also from the Republicans, is misleading these families, not telling them the truth. They are concentrating on just launching false attacks against me and anyone else that's running against them, right? It's not, these attacks are not just unique to me. They are using the same attacks all over the country to some of my other Democratic colleagues and here as well. And I think it's to mislead, to distract from the fact that they have absolutely no solutions. They have no plan to get this pandemic under control. They have no plan to get Americans back to work. They are not providing solutions. Their only plan, Jim, from what we have seen, is to completely dismantle institutions like the U.S. Postal Service, which Americans rely on for their medicine and for care packages from their loved ones who are serving in the military. I mean, their plan is to dismantle the government. Their plan is to cut funding to public schools. And I think that's why it's so dangerous, because when they are putting hundreds of millions of dollars in dark money and super PACs, launching false attacks, it's misleading, and it's really just for them to continue to hold on to power.
Well, let's be fair for a second. There are certainly going to be political action committees that are going to be working on your behalf as well. I mean, the notion of dark money into super PACs is not unique only to Republicans. Democrats play in that game as well, do they not?
They do. They use money to launch attacks against people that are trying to undermine our democracy. But to tell you the truth, and you know this, we've had this conversation. Democrats are always following the rule of law, making sure that they're not making any false attacks, because they want to make sure that they're following those lines. And what I've seen from Republican attacks are just completely false, misleading lies, and they're never held to account. And it's one of my concerns right now, because it's undermining our democracy. Social media companies should be held to the same standards. We're seeing misinformation being spread in Facebook, on Twitter. And to tell you the truth, we need to get money out of politics. I mean, we passed the first piece of legislation that we passed when I got to Congress in January was H.R. 1, which takes money out of politics. It reverses Citizens United, which was a rule that was implemented under Republican control. And we need to make sure that we know who is paying for these attacks, who these people are. You know, they have these names that are always very misleading for Americans. And so we need to pass those reforms. We need to have transparency. We need to have accountability, and make sure that we start with a clean slate of government once
But just to be clear, you are probably going to spend, between yourself and those groups who are on your behalf, $8 million this cycle to hold on to this seat. You will probably outspend Carlos Jimenez in that regard. I mean, you know, is there any hypocrisy in decrying money when so much of it is flowing your way?
No hypocrisy. If we could change right now and pass H.R. 1, I would absolutely follow that line. Absolutely. But let me just make a comparison and make something very clear. I have been getting support from individuals that live in my district. My average contribution is under, I don't know right now today, so I don't want to give you the wrong amount, but I think the average contribution in my campaign is under $100. We have tens of thousands of individuals that are donating to my campaign because they trust the work that I've been doing, because they want to keep me in the seat because they know that I am going to represent them in Washington, D.C., raising the minimum wage, making sure that we provide and expand quality healthcare, which I've been doing from the very beginning, bringing millions of dollars to community health centers in my district, making sure that we make the right investments to put Americans back to work. I'm on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Jim, and one of the things that we passed just recently is a massive, monumental transportation infrastructure bill that would create millions of jobs in the country. So that is why I'm getting so much support from individuals. I don't rely on PAC money. I actually, there are many, many companies that I won't receive funding for that they've offered, and I've said no, thank you. I represent the people of Florida's 26th district, and I will continue to do that.
Let's talk about some of the attacks that are likely to be leveled against you. I think the most common refrain is, I think we'll probably see a lot of pictures of you standing next to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and claiming that you're a wannabe member of the squad and that you're a socialist at heart and that the Democratic Party is moving towards socialism. How will you address that? You know, because that's a very sensitive subject in South Florida where that pain is very real.
Yeah, Jim, I was born in Ecuador. I came here when I was 14. I know exactly what a dictatorship and an authoritarian regime looks like. I reject socialism 100%. They're just false. They make no sense to me because it's just, I don't know where they're coming from. I know that they think that that works, but people that know me, my background and what I stand for know that they're just false attacks. And it's the exact same attack that Republicans are using all over the country, not just against me. It's an attack to instill fear. Again, to try to hold on to power. I have been focusing from day one on making sure that I bring resources to the district. That's why I wanted to sit on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. I have been focusing on providing safety to my community, which is plagued by gun violence. We know that we are losing kids under the age of 18 in South Dade every other week. We just had a shooting last week. So we were able to pass in my committee and the Judiciary Committee, the Universal Background Check Bill. We passed the Dreamer Bill so that dreamers can finally have a path to citizenship. And as you know, we have tens of thousands of dreamers living down here in South Florida. Those are the issues that I've been working on. They will use those attacks. I don't think that they're going to work because they're false and because people in my district know that I'm working for them, and that's going to always be my priority.
Well, one issue where you may face some criticism on is when the PPP program came into effect, a company that your husband works for received some of that federal money. I believe that at the end of the day, the company ended up returning the money, but why should the perception is, the look is going to be that your husband somehow benefited from federal money that you help oversee.
Yeah, and let me make something very, very clear. What they're saying is completely false. This whole misconception that my husband is an employee. He's an attorney at a company that did get a PPP loan and then ultimately returned it. But he never had any decision-making power. He was not part of the decision to get the loan. He was not part of the decision to return the loan. And I am 100% behind the Paycheck Protection Program Transparency Act. We introduced that piece of legislation right after the CARES Act, and when we started seeing that large businesses were receiving money that were intended to be sent to small businesses. I am 100% behind transparency, accountability. I don't think large businesses should have received those funds.
Is there something to be said for there needs to be a change? That maybe we need to toss those who are in power right now out and bring in new people like Carlos Jimenez?
So, Jim, from the very beginning, we got elected in 2018, this large class of women, the most diverse class of Congress members in the history of our nation. I'm the first South American born member of Congress to ever be elected, and I'm bringing that voice to Washington, D.C. And all of us came ready to make those changes because I agree there's a lot of dysfunctionality. There's too much division in this country. But everything that we've been doing, this false narrative that we are not working in a bipartisan basis, it's just not true. And it's taken me time. It's taken me time to establish relationships with some of my Republican colleagues, but I've been very successful in doing that. We've passed bills, a lot of the bills that we've passed are bipartisan bills. We have sent over 400 bills to the Senate, to the Republican-led Senate, who has been sitting on these bills, not doing absolutely anything to improve the life of American families that are right now, their lives are becoming more and more difficult, especially because of this pandemic. We passed the CARES Act. It was a bipartisan bill that actually saved 94,000 jobs in my district alone. I'm very proud of that bill. We sent $1,200 stimulus checks to families in America. We were able to provide $600 unemployment benefits. And then knowing that that wasn't going to be enough, we immediately acted. We passed the HEROES Act over 12 weeks ago to extend that unemployment benefit, to provide another round of stimulus payments. I actually was able to include in the HEROES Act my Medicare Advantage bill to make sure that seniors, if they need COVID treatment, that Medicare Advantage would cover all of that treatment. That passed in the HEROES Act, and the Senate left. We are willing to come back to the table and negotiate. We need to do that for American families all over the nation. We need to do that. And I know that the House is ready to continue to negotiate. We already said that we would come down a significant amount on the bill, the request on the bill. We can look at timeline and dates on that bill and how long we can provide that unemployment benefit, but we need to provide economic relief. I'm getting calls from small business owners. I'm getting calls from teachers that are extremely concerned. Seniors that they're worried they're not going to get their meals. We owe it. I know that we need to find a solution. We need to provide relief, and you need to ask the same questions from our senators here in the state of Florida who are not willing to come to the table.
Give me your impression. What do you make of the results of the primary on the Republican side? Carlos Jimenez getting just 60% of the vote to Omar Blanco, who basically had no financial resources whatsoever, and yet won 40% of the vote in the primary. What does that tell you?
Yeah, what I've seen is that a lot of people have been let down by Carlos Jimenez's leadership during the pandemic. I mean, we have become the epicenter here in the state of Florida with the highest number of cases in the state of Florida here in Miami-Dade County, and he has had absolutely no plan. And I know that there's been a lot of people that have told me, both Republicans and Democrats have told me that they have had enough of Carlos Jimenez.
We'll be right back.